order, everyone. Well, it was 6 months. It was 6 months from the moment that I said yes to my daughter having social media to the moment that I was sitting in a doctor's office being told that she was really suffering from mental health issues. 6 months. Now, I never used to fear technology. I've been around it all my life. I've built a career around it. But nothing prepared me for those 6 months. And this wasn't sort of teenage moodiness that I was seeing. It was like watching a light dim, this beautiful child that had been so full of life and so much happiness and curiosity. And as a parent, you really sense these things, don't you, before you can explain them. And so I started to talk to others. I started to talk to my colleagues at work all around the world, to parents at school. I started to talk to friends and family. And the same things were emerging. You know, what I thought was unusual actually was not. Because what I was hearing was that same pattern of social media and then mental health issues coming from that. Anxiety, depression, eating disorders, self-harm, and worse. And you know, the people, including me, that I spoke to, we didn't know where to go to. We didn't know how to manage this. We didn't know where to get support. We were confused. There was no guidance. Like, who was in charge? Who do we speak to about this? I guess from those discussions, something really constructive came because a few of us decided to get together. You know, we were youth workers, mums, dads, paediatricians in emergency departments, principals of schools. But we had one thing in common. We knew something wasn't right. And we knew that we needed to be able to support families who just didn't have a fair fight in terms of trying to ask big texts and big questions. So that is how we formed Before 16. And we started off in that journey and we looked at the data and we looked at the business model around these social media companies. And when we stood back, probably after about a year, we stood back and we were absolutely convicted that there was absolutely no way our kids should be using social media before 16. So, why were we so convicted about this? Well, to understand that, you've really got to go back to, all the way back to 2012. And you've also got to really understand the way these companies tick. Now, there's great researchers, Jonathan Haidt and others, who started to pull big global data sets together. And what we saw was that across Australia, New Zealand, the US, UK, Canada, like-minded countries, for the years, decades, in fact, preceding 2012, mental health among our kids was pretty stable. And then hockey stick growth, depression, anxiety, the usual suspects of mental health illnesses. And what changed in 2012 was social media was put onto smartphones. So what had been something that our kids were visiting when they went to their laptops, when they, went to their iPads, was now on them 24/7. Now, here in New Zealand, we had a look at the data, and we found there'd been a 400% increase in high and very high psychological distress among our young people in the last decade. We also found that 3 out of 4 young people said that mental health was their number one concern in life. we understood that there was this linkage between this mental health epidemic for our youth and the introduction of social media onto smartphones. But we were really interested in why. Like, what were the social media companies doing that was really so bad? And why were they after our kids? So the first thing we had to do was understand the business model. Now, I really want you as, parents, caregivers, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, grandparents to understand this, because if you understand the business model of social media companies, you will understand they will never put people before profit. Because contrary to their name, they are not social businesses. They are giant advertising companies. And their number one metric is attention. So that's why we talk about social media being part of this thing called the attention economy. And the attention economy goes like this. Hey users, you get to come and use our platform for free. And in return, the price you pay is we get your attention and we get all your data. And with that, we go to advertisers and we sell it. So they can in turn sell stuff to you, including kids. And then you think about, well, why are they going after kids? And of course, you think, well, kids don't have a lot of money. But actually, we're wrong. In 2022, we had a look at how much money all the social media companies made out of selling advertising to advertisers who were targeting kids under 18 in the US alone. They made $11 billion. It's a very good reason to go after kids. But the big reason is because social media companies know that if I get a 13-year-old or younger engaged, let's say addicted to social media, I have a lifetime value customer or user on my platform that will grow up to be an adult that's addicted, that will spend even more, and I'll get more advertising money. Think about the features. Who here is on social media? But it's okay, you're among friends. So think about it for those of you who know. Infinite scroll, push notifications, those autoplay videos. The pull down to refresh? Guess where that comes from? Psychology of slot machines and casinos. So these social media companies hired the people that design slot machines to now design their social media apps. So that's the environment they've created. Now, if there's one last piece to that puzzle, if you like, the fuel that runs through it, it's the algorithm. And you've got to remember, this algorithm was built with no ethical bias. It is completely indiscriminate about what content it's showing to who. And unfortunately, the content that keeps young minds on platforms is content like how to solve anxiety, self-harm, weight loss, turning into eating disorder material. There's an amazing filmmaker here in New Zealand called Nadia Maxwell. And she did a lot of work over the last few years to look at this because we'd heard, okay, this is what our kids are seeing, but we're not seeing that as adults. This is really weird. So she set up these experiments and she set up some profiles for 13-year-olds. Now she put their interests as like cat videos, Taylor Swift, funny animal dances, stuff like that. Concerningly, on Instagram, within 24 hours, her feed was loaded with pro-eating disorder content, with quite distressing mental health content. And it gets worse on TikTok, because within like 22 minutes, she was being served up suicide content. This is not accidental. This is the attention economy working as intended. So we know that this environment has been built knowingly by social media companies. In March of this year, Meta was sued for knowingly creating a product designed to get kids addicted to their platform. And you saw it in internal documents. And these two researchers were talking. And one said, "Oh my gosh, y'all, Instagram's like a drug." And the other one said, "Yeah, we're basically pushers." So when these platforms are high-fiving themselves about addiction, and when we have a court case by a jury saying, "Yeah, you knew you were designing an addictive platform and you did nothing about it. In fact, you poured gas on it with your algorithms." Now, Holly Brooker, this is her slide from Make Sense, and she showed this to me 18 months ago. And you'll remember I said when we embarked on this journey, we were like, who's in charge? Someone must be looking at this. You know, who's protecting our kids from these online platforms? And it was literally crickets. And she showed me this, and I understood why. You know, you could add up, you put in a lot of other countries there. We have no online safety legislation in New Zealand. We have no online regulator. No one standing between us and big tech. Many other countries, some states in the US, obviously Australia, France, Spain, India, China, the list goes on, they have all come out and said, we're in the process, or we have put in an age restriction, like enough. You know, in 2024, our Attorney General looked at this issue and said, you know what, we're looking at how much money is being spent on mental health in New Zealand, and in particular youth mental health, because we are spending more money than we ever have before on our kids trying to get them well. And the thing is, they're getting worse. We're spending, across all our mental health budgets, $20 billion every year. It's 5% of our GDP. So this is an economic as well as a health problem to solve. We urgently need a regulator to hold these companies to account. So I thought about this the other night, and I thought, well, I should probably hold myself to account too. Because I've got to put my hand up. I was still using Instagram and Facebook. I was saying to myself, well, I've got to connect to my friends and family and, you know, see who's had a baby and who's traveling overseas. And I need to repost before 16 stuff, so I really do need it on my mobile. And the other night I was doom scrolling and I looked up and my 18-year-old daughter was just staring at me. And she was giving me that, like, you know how teenagers do? Oh, Mum, I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised kind of look. And that moment, I shut down the apps and I pressed on them and I said, remove them from my home screen. And it felt fabulous. And I have to tell you, I have so much more time on my hands. I can still click on links that people send me. My account hasn't disappeared. But I decide when I want to interact with those social media companies. It's part of the attention economy, not when they want to interact with me. Because, you know, once we understand how this attention economy works and how we participate in it, everything changes. And once our behaviour changes, we have this opportunity to have a different conversation with the young people that are around us. So, Waihī. I looked out today at this beautiful beach at the horizon, this infinite horizon, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is just majestic. And I thought how sad it is that something as beautiful as this could disappear and become like this distant second when we hand a young child a cell phone, a mobile phone with social media, or as I like to call it, slot machine apps on it. You know, we have accepted social media for too long without question. But when we know better, we do better. So I want to leave you with this question. Who's in charge? Like who? Is it the big tech bros in Silicon Valley who don't even let their children use their own products that they've created, let alone have a cell phone? Or is it us? It is us. We are in charge. And let us never forget the agency that we carry when big tech would like us to think otherwise. Because we can decide that childhood is more than just a revenue line on Meta's advertising dashboard. Waihī, I want you to go out and talk to your friends and your family, and I want you to say to them, we've decided to call bullshit on these big social media companies that have stolen so many childhoods from our tamariki. So thank you so much. Together, let's make sure that no child suffers harm, and that's why we need a restriction of social media before 16. Thank you.